point of view, that is group theory. Milne was a guy that did that, and he was actually motivated by religious convictions, not scientific ones. And he actually wrote a book in which he tried to meld together the ideas of cosmology and religion. And amazingly, the model that he came up with actually agrees with observation. So we've got two people so far, Newton and Milne, both of which, and if we include Einstein and Eddington, a good collection of people who all did the same problem, but from completely different perspectives. Some not being religious, some being religious, and some in between. This is Laplace. Lived about the same time as Newton, worked out the consequences of a lot of Newton's laws. When he was asked by Napoleon where the idea of God fit into all his calculations, he said, "I have no need of that hypothesis." The point is that a person's religious convictions don't really, at least as far as I can determine by looking at it historically, they don't really affect the outcome of the science. At various times I've had the honor of going with contingents of people to various dignitaries. Here we are trying to convince the Pope, the previous Pope, to the present one. I don't think the present one would have been even probably willing to meet with us. As it was, this is the previous Pope in 1985. This is the collection of what some of you here as physicists will recognize to be quite distinguished physicists, and we've been trying to persuade John Paul that the universe began in the Big Bang. I don't think he bought it. He referred us back to a book that everybody's supposed to have read. If we look a bit cheesed off or slightly negative or bored, like, for example, that's Martin Harwitt, and he doesn't look very happy. George Ellis, me, I admit to looking bored. We did try to present the scientific point of view. We didn't get very far, as I say. This is Darwin, of course, but the point of having Darwin in the discussion is that he recognized that people's ideas evolve in combination with their physiological being, okay? As far as Darwin is concerned, we are animals along the same trek of evolution as other ones like monkeys, chimpanzees, whatever. So our ideas, our mental capabilities are in some step with our physical ones. We can't expect to see everything like some all-being God or other heavenly personage, but at the same time, we can certainly see a lot more of it than a cat or a dog or a horse. Presumably, if we manage to evolve more and don't destroy ourselves in the process, then we'll be able to learn more about it. This is a picture of Fred Hoyle, who certainly influenced the whole generation of astronomers of my age, like from about the years 1960 through to about 2000. His was the dominant view on cosmology. This is actually a fresco, and it's on the floor of the British Museum. It depicts Hoyle in the artist's imagination trying to achieve things through thought. He's not fiddling around with telescopes and doesn't have his eye to one. What he's trying to achieve here, he gets at through thought. Now, a lot of the stuff that we attribute nowadays to scientists is actually a recognition of their mental abilities. And most of physics these days is done using equations. I'd like in the last few minutes to try and convince you that mathematics is a language, in no basic wise different from the fact that I'm talking to you in English. Let me start off with what may look to be a rather irrelevant point of departure. It's a picture by the great English fine artist Turner. What it shows is an old warship, sorry, other way, back to, thanks. The Temeraire, the picture is called the Fighting Temeraire, and it was at the Battle of Trafalgar. It's being towed by this steamship to the wrecker's yard. It's obsolete. Like all good art, this has got some meaning to it. It's not just a picture. Okay? It means something. And we'll come back to this in a few minutes. I think that an argument can be made that you pass from fine art like this through, for example, poetry, like this famous collection of poems by Omar Khayyam, The Moving Hand, etc., etc. This is a piece of dance choreography. Okay? It's getting closer and closer to a code. This is a page from Beethoven's Ninth Symphony. Now, if you were an alien or a person not conversant with music at all, you might well look at this and think, ah, that's a code for something. You might not know what it is or what it represents, but of course it'd be converted into some of the best music that we've ever known. But it's essentially a code. Does anybody recognize this? I bet you've all used it at some time. Yes, aspirin. That's a code for aspirin or getting rid of a headache. Right? It's a code. This is a page of calculations. I apologize for the quality. It's from a very old manuscript. This is from a page of calculations by Einstein. It's mathematics, but you can see the evolution. It seems obvious to me, like what Eddington argued, that all these things, the ways in which people express themselves, are some form or another of a code. And I think that mathematics is a code. It's a language. Therefore, you can't make a sharp distinction between mathematics and physics and other aspects of reality. If we admit that mathematics is a code, then we can run backwards through that sequence I just showed you, all the way back to the beginning, and we have to recognize then that physics and mathematics is in some sense at one end of a spectrum that goes back through the other ones that I've illustrated to you and ends up at the other end in fine art. All they are, whether it's Turner's painting or Einstein's calculations, are opposite ends of a spectrum. They are all involving codes. There are all kinds of ways in which we try to express and understand the universe. Therefore, physics should not be considered to be some kind of ivory tower subject separate from the rest of what people do. And I'd like to finish up by going back to Turner's picture and reminding you that we've got this spectrum that starts in fine art, goes through things like music, chemistry, choreography, ends up in Einstein's equations, but if we run it backwards, then we end up with this. The meaningfulness of these codes is something that people have to discuss. Some things mean a lot to us, and other things don't mean very much to us. This picture, for me, means a lot. For some of you sitting here, it probably means a lot. If any of you have served in the Navy, it will mean a lot. If anybody is interested in the history of the Industrial Revolution, it will mean a lot. It means a lot anyway because it's a nice picture. The thing is that it's not just a daub, okay? Turner has taken the time to construct this picture with the ancient, old, obsolete sailboat there, despite the fact that it was at Trafalgar and helped prevent England being invaded. It's now on its way irrevocably to being torn into bits by this newer mechanical ship. And then your mind can take off from there and go to wherever you want.